Hey everybody, it's Sam with Wrestling Overtime, giving you your Raves and Rants review for AEW tonight on April the 22nd, 2020. And of course, we have our commentators, Chris Jericho and Tony Schiavone. And let me tell you, every week that they are together, they get better and better and better. And I mean, part of me is like, oh, I would like to have these two all the time. But then again, I love Chris Jericho as a wrestler. I don't want him to quit wrestling. I know eventually he's going to have to retire and everything. And I want him on commentary as soon as he retires. But, you know, I really want him back wrestling. Of course, I have told y'all before on other episodes that I just love Tony Schiavone. I think that he plays the straight man to Jericho's wild craziness so well. And he describes the play-by-play action and tells the story that the wrestlers are trying to tell in the ring so well. I just can't believe it. If you can't tell, I am already happier with this show than what I was last week. I don't know whether they just really expected Jake Hager and Jon Moxley to carry the show. I don't know whether they wanted Lance Archer to be the wow, or I mean, I don't know what they expected with last week, but this week, I mean, we opened up with Cody sitting in a chair looking at what appeared to maybe be 4 different TV screens, talking about the people left in the TNT Championship tournament. Talking about, the Spanish God, the Enigma, the Murder Hawk. And he's looking at each one and talking about them, and then you see Cody, the actor, Cody, the executive that's been around for years and years, been around the best wrestlers in the business, because you see him actually show the questioning on his face as he's looking, and he says, well, who am I? Where do I fit in to all of this? And I'm sure that that's a question that Cody pulled from reality. I'm sure when he was sitting there and they were filming that in that chair, that he thought back to when he left the WWE and was questioning, where in wrestling do I fit in? And I love the comment that he says, can it be about future endeavors if you don't endeavor? I think I'm going to quote that probably to my teams from now on. How can you have future endeavors if you're not endeavoring? And I love that he said, am I a 3-star general, or am I, a mid-carder for life? Because in the WWE, that's what they assumed he was. They felt like, even though Cody did get over probably 2 or 3 times in WWE, they never really let him run with it. And I'm sure that they thought he was going to be a mid-carder for life. I'm sure that when he left WWE, that, independent wrestling organizations and promotions, I'm sure they booked him at or near the top because he's Dusty Rhodes' son, Cody Rhodes, and that he had been in WWE. And they could put that on their poster. But I'm sure there had to be promoters out there thinking, you know, he is just another WWE has-been mid-carder. I'm going to get him while he's hot since he just left, and then he'll come back through here next year and I'll stick him on the mid-card. So I feel like Cody was pulling from reality. And he went even further, saying what some of you that are listening to this episode probably said, or, you know, are the internet nuts that are out there. He says, did I break the throne because I was afraid to sit in it? And of course, they show him breaking the replica of Triple H's throne that he did at Double or Nothing last year, and that's what everybody on the internet said. Cody doesn't want to be the King of Kings. He doesn't want to play the game. So he just broke it because he doesn't want to sit in it. And then he says, if you hear something enough times, then it gets comfortable. Like an old leather chair. Am I comfortable? I loved this opening segment because it's everything that was said about Cody, I don't know, in the last 3 to 4 years. And he showed I myself am thinking that. And you saw him make up his mind. No. I'm not comfortable. I am going to endeavor. I'm going to go win this tournament. I'm going to go be something. I'm going to go be somebody. I'm going to really take this to the top. And I just thought after last week, this was the perfect opening segment to kind of set us straight that last week was kind of a fluke. I'm going to be shocked if NXT beats them this week. I'm going to call it now. I have no idea what the ratings are. It is 2:37 in the morning, so ratings haven't come out yet, but I'm calling it now. AEW is going to beat NXT. For the simple fact I know what NXT put on tonight, and they didn't have anything close to this segment. And then they immediately go to Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin in the quarterfinals of the, in the TNT Championship Tournament. Now, if you were like me, I thought this was going to be the main event. I really did. I thought that they were going to hold this one back. They would give it, 20 minutes, half an hour, and let these two just go at each other. With this is their future. Sammy Guevara, 26 years old, Darby Allin, 23 years old, 24 maybe now. This is the future. This is their bread and butter for the next 10 years. These guys have already put on awesome matches, and for them to be taking on each other in the first round of this tournament, oh yeah, I definitely thought this was going to be the main event. But to start it off, NXT is playing the Where's Finn Balor card, is playing Velveteen Dream doing a promo, and they're throwing you right into the very match that you thought was going to be a main event. Oh, unbelievable. Like do talking about each other and then coming out. And before the bell even rings, before Darby can even get his coat off, Sammy is flipping over the rope and taking Darby out, slamming him into barricades. He's pulling a ladder out from underneath the ring, setting it up, and putting Darby on top of a ladder so that he can jump off the ring apron and punish him. I was just like, are you serious? We're starting out hardcore from the get-go. And, they shoot us into commercial, and when we come back, Sammy still got some control, and you can see him working on, Darby's smaller body and putting him in some pain. But then you immediately see Darby flip and get up, where he actually pulls off Sammy Guevara's boot and his sock, and he tries to undo the tape and then puts him in a reverse ankle lock, which I know he probably wasn't turning it nearly as hard as what Sammy was making it out to be, but he was still turning it fairly good, and Sammy was feeling it, and you could tell. And so I just was amazed. Now, of course, Sammy gets out of it, and he's still having to do kicks and climb the ropes and all of this with one boot on and barefoot on the other. He ends up popping Darby and busting his nose. Darby is bleeding. You can see Aubrey is a little concerned and, really asks him, are you okay? And he gives her, oh yeah, I'm fine, and just continues to work on Sammy's ankle and his legs. It ended up just unreal. Looked like at one point Sammy had actually either cut his lip or his gum was bleeding from where Darby was taking it back after him. Sammy then starts controlling the match and using his quickness kind of combined with the more power that he had over Darby. But then Darby slips him and tries to do the coffin drop from the second ring rope. I felt myself like, oh, I don't want that to be the coffin drop. I was kind of glad that Sammy caught him, because I didn't want that to be the end of this match, that second rope coffin drop. I want a real coffin drop. I want one, from the top, tippy top of the rope, and where he gets height and everything. But he does one from the second rope, and Sammy actually catches him kind of on his shoulders back, and looks like he's going to do John Cena's AA. We have talked about that in previous episodes. Sammy's done that one time. I'm not sure what Sammy's calling that. But anyway, Darby ended up sliding off of Sammy's shoulders and rolling him up. He used what he is calling the Last Supper as the win. He's getting people in the same way you start off doing a sharpshooter from the Hart Foundation. But instead of rolling them over, he's rolling his body forward towards the wrestler's head and bending the leg that way and wrapping his other leg around. And it's a pretty cool move. Not sure I like the whole Last Supper. I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me. But Darby Allin got the win. And so he's going to be taking on Cody next week. Which we all know Cody's kind of been waiting for. Since, Darby turned on him in that tag team match. So, really interested already from Cody's promo of saying, I'm going after this. And then Darby had turned on him in the tag team match and didn't want his sympathy. I'm looking forward already. They've shown me 2 segments. And I'm already saying, can we go to next week? Because I want to see Cody versus Darby. But we've got more of this show to go. I'm loving Chris Jericho's commentary, how he's breaking down things, he's reminding people, but he's staying in character because he was rooting for Sammy the whole entire time. Well, we hear Tony say Matt Hardy wants to say something. And, Jericho being Jericho and being in character was, who wants to hear from that idiot? But we see Matt Hardy come to us from the Hardy compound in North Carolina, and he is in his broken brilliance using his accent that he has and calling Jericho names of being a hole of an ass, and he basically says Jericho has had 7 days and hasn't bothered to answer him about having an elite deletion match at the Hardy compound. And he feels like Jericho's just scared. And then, I didn't realize it, he makes fun of the bubbly bunch that they showed last week. But he says in that, the Spanish god Samuel was the only one to even mention his name. And I don't remember that. But he says, he wasn't afraid to mention my name. He wasn't afraid to talk about me. And so he proceeds to invite Samuel to come to the Hardy compound. That he can fight Jericho's fight that he doesn't want to. That he's too scared to. That Sammy can show up at any time. He's more than welcome. And then it's like it clicks. He says maybe Chris Jericho doesn't get his Damascus essence. Maybe he wants to talk to the Matt Hardy essence that he recognizes. And so we see him turn into, I don't know what else to call him, but basically the real Matt Hardy, or the WWE Matt Hardy that has his hair pulled back, is wearing the leather jacket and talks, semi-normal with his North Carolina accent. And he says, well, maybe if I talk this way and I am the Matt Hardy essence that Chris Jericho recognizes, maybe he'll understand better. And he proceeds to talk about how long he's known him, how, they've went through spells where they've liked each other, they've not liked each other. And he then talks about how he's known Nick and Matt, and how he's friends with Cody, and how he's impressed with Kenny Omega. and how they form the pillars of AEW, and how Jericho wants to wreck those pillars and throw AEW into chaos. And then I believe he starts talking like the real Matt Hardy, the one that's deep down, because he says, I believe in what AEW is standing for. I believe and am thankful that the Elite has created another promotion that people can go to for freedom, and that he wants to save AEW from total chaos for future wrestlers. And I think that that's what he does believe. I think that's one of the reasons why he really did come to AEW. And so then he invites him as the WWE Matt Hardy basically to come to the Hardy compound. Now, immediately after this, Jericho comes out with, Matt Hardy needs to shut his big fat mouth. Typical Chris Jericho character that he's in now. But I thought he would bring it up later in the show. I really did. I thought maybe Tony might even ask him about it. If he, have you been thinking about this or anything? But they didn't. But I can't wait for this to escalate. I know they're kind of probably in a wait and see mode with, the pandemic going on and everything. I found it interesting. They go to commercial, and when they come back, they do a segment which I absolutely love. Taz, it's one of Taz's biggest attributes that I loved in the WWE, and then I loved when he was a commentator for TNA. Taz recognizes moves that wrestlers are doing in the ring, and then will tell you body part that move hurts, or if a wrestler is kicking to the hamstring, how that causes, the hamstring to tighten up and you can't move as fast. And he breaks things down. Well, they created a segment basically for Taz doing that, and he breaks down Kenny Omega's V-trigger, and then breaks down Kenny Omega's Snapdragon move. And it was extremely interesting because they did it in slow-mo, and they highlighted certain parts of Kenny's body and then showed where it was actually making contact with the other wrestler, and they highlighted that, and it was really cool. And it just made me miss Taz. I was like, oh, I miss him. I do want him back on commentary. I want him and Tony Schiavone, calling a lot of the matches together, because I just think they're going to be awesome. Don't take that as I hate JR. I don't. I like JR. I don't want JR alone ever again after last week. Now, I don't really care for Excalibur. You give me Taz and Tony, or you give me Taz and JR, I'm fine. I don't really like a three-man booth, and I know Excalibur has a lot of knowledge about the little-known wrestlers. But I think Taz now can more than handle it, and he doesn't care to study up on stuff. So I just wish they would switch Excalibur into a YouTube commentator doing pre-show before AEW Dynamite, and then maybe doing the after show. He's been doing a good job on that. And so on YouTube, if any of you are not watching this on YouTube, I would kind of like to see them keep him in that role, and then just let Taz be the color commentator for me and JR. But then we see Kenny Omega next. We see him taking on Alan Angels, and I was, I don't know, I was a little confused with this match. As was, I think, Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho was saying things either before I thought them or as I was thinking them. I just felt like this match should have been over really quick. It was almost like Kenny Omega was playing around with him too much. He let Angels get a lot of offense on him, way more than what, number one, I thought he should have, and number two, way more than I thought time would allow. I mean, I don't know. I felt like he just messed around with him too much. And Kenny Omega can make more inexperienced wrestlers look good, and he did make this guy look good, but at what detriment? He went through a losing streak for a while, and a lot of fans were questioning Kenny Omega. I don't know that he needs to play up this guy that's inexperienced and get those fans questioning again. And I know what you're thinking is, well, Sam, aren't you questioning a little? No. Remember, if you haven't been listening from the get-go, I told you guys from the get-go, I'm not a big Kenny Omega fan. I'm definitely not a super fan. I'm not sure that he's the best wrestler in the world. And I know that's going to make some of you mad, but I'm just not. I haven't been real impressed with him in AEW. And yes, I've went back and watched some of his matches from Japan and stuff now. At the time, no, I hadn't watched him. I wasn't familiar with his stuff. I don't know that I'm still that familiar, but for me not to know who he is, if I wouldn't have went and watched some of those matches, I would be. And I just thought this match was iffy, and to me it wasn't real interesting. Then I was so excited. I cannot tell you how excited I was. We got a Scorpio Sky video package. I started watching SCU, Scorpio Sky, Frankie Kazarian, and Christopher Daniels in Ring of Honor. And I didn't really know Scorpio Sky's backstory. I didn't know how long he had been wrestling. To me, it appears that he's newer on the scene. I've heard of Christopher Daniels before. I've seen him be the fallen angel. I had heard of Frankie Kazarian, and so I had never heard or seen Scorpio Sky, as far as I know, until Ring of Honor. So to find out that he's always loved wrestling, that he's always wanted to be a pro wrestler, that he told his mom that that's something that he's pursued and had pursued for a while, was a little shocking to me. He even gave the date of between 2008 and 2009 that he had been wrestling for a little while. He didn't say how long, but he said, I got a really bad back injury. And when I went to the doctor, they found out that, I had an L2, L3 collapsing vertebrae discs, and they told me that I had to either give up wrestling and go on a pain regimen, which means taking pain pills, or I had to have surgery, and neither one of them would probably allow me to wrestle. And he talked about how painful that was, and Dream basically was going to be crushed. And I had no clue of that. I had no knowledge of that. He talked about how he prayed. He went to his mom's grave, and he just wasn't making it in wrestling. That he had been through different promotions and thought he was doing well, and then they would tell him, we just don't have room for you, or we can't pay you. And he said, I really want to give this one more chance. And he said then December of 2017 happened, and he joined SCU. And of course they cut it off and say, to be continued. But that was enough to draw me in and get me excited. Number one, I haven't seen SCU and Scorpio Sky forever, it seems like, because they have been caught with the travel ban in California. And I mean, I knew that. I had followed them on Twitter. I knew that. But to hear his backstory, I guess I just always assumed that when I saw them in Ring of Honor that they had been a trio for a while. I didn't know that, it's been less than 3 years that they've been together. I had no clue. And so it makes me really want to find out more. I can't wait for this to be continued. I want to know what else he has to say. I liked his style of talking and telling his backstory. And then we got what a lot of us had already seen. They showed a little bit of the road to the TNT championships. And it was Cody sitting in his chair listening to a song that Dustin had left him on his phone, talking about how, he was 51 years old and he wanted to make a run at things, that he felt better than what he'd ever felt, and that if he couldn't beat Kip Sabian, then he probably needed to retire. And I thought that told us a lot about both of them. I thought not only did that tell us about Dustin's frame of mind, how he is enjoying wrestling again. And you can tell it. I think he's enjoying teaching. I think he's enjoying choreographing with the newer wrestlers. I think he has really found himself and been rejuvenated. And you could hear that. But you could also hear, because I'm old, if I can't beat Kip, then I need to go away. Well, you couldn't see Dustin. However, you could see Cody. Even though Cody never said a word, you could see him and his reaction of, feeling, oh my gosh, my brother has found his love of wrestling again. But you also saw him wincing and getting frustrated and confusion and hurt, and I don't want my brother to retire, but I don't want him to win this championship because I'm in this tournament too, and we're on separate sides, and if he does continue winning, and I continue winning, then we're going to have to battle each other again, and we just did that last year, and my brother ended up pretty bloody. You could see things going through his mind and his body language, and that makes me want to have Cody versus Dustin 2. Do I think that that's what they're going to do? No. I don't. I don't think that's going to be the finals. I'll be shocked if it is the finals. But, I really like this promo. Now, this promo led to Orange Cassidy's debut. It was Jimmy Havoc versus Orange Cassidy, and of course, Orange Cassidy brought out the best friends. And Trent and Chuck didn't really do a whole lot. Part of me wondered why they were there. We saw Penelope Ford on the hillside of the wrestlers watching. I never did see Kip Sabian until the end, but they made mention of him a couple times. I like how last week they told the story of, how Kip and Jimmy had been friends for a while. They're living together. Jimmy's totally supports him dating Penelope and all that. Wasn't real sure about Orange Cassidy though. Like everyone else, I had looked him up on YouTube. I'd seen the memes and the gifs that everybody has made out of him. It was my understanding that a lot of times in the indies that Orange Cassidy was a slug and did his half-hearted kicks, it seemed to me, until he got his sunglasses knocked off. And then it was like, then he came alive. That's not how they played it. He came out and immediately Jimmy Havoc attacked him. He used his jacket and jerked it halfway off to pin his arms behind him and chop him and hit him, and then he pulled the jacket off and proceeded to use it to choke him with it, and then did the same thing with his shirt as far as pulling his shirt up and chopping him and then taking it off of him and stuff. I was shocked. I had never seen Orange Cassidy without his t-shirt. He is pale as pale can be. I think the thing that shocked me was Jimmy Havoc. I've always known and heard that he was a stiff worker and that he was borderline. Sometimes he hit you or he stiff hit you in order to cause a little bit of pain or so that people would believe it. Well, I definitely believe it because you could tell it on Orange Cassidy's chest and on his back. Jimmy Havoc was hitting him. And you were not hearing pops because he was slapping his leg. The red marks you can't fake on Orange Cassidy's back and on his chest. He's just so pale that basically Jimmy Havoc was striping him with red marks with his slaps and chops and everything, and it was unbelievable. He took and threw him out and banged him into the barricades. I was shocked the best friends didn't come over and help or anything. He was stomping on his hands, stomping on his arm. He was bending his wrist and fingers in ways that your hand is not meant to be bent. But I think the thing that I think got me the most, I'm used to Jimmy Havoc biting people's hands, but when he went to put Orange Cassidy's hand in his mouth, you could already see where he had stomped his hand, how red his hand was. And so him biting it, and then putting it in his pocket, and then biting the other one and putting it in his pocket, Jericho and Tony made it seem like by putting his hands in his pocket, that's what made him come alive. I don't know, because the thing is, yes, he bounced off the ring ropes and got some energy, and he did his flip from his back to a standing up position and everything. But when he went after to dive on Jimmy Havoc when he was outside the ring and everything, Orange Cassidy did not have his hands in his pockets. And I would say, I don't know, 85 or 90% of the time, he didn't have his hands in his pockets after that. But he still had all of his energy and was doing his movements that I had saw him do before. So, not sure that I'm going to buy the whole hands in the pockets thing. Plus, every time in the last year he's shown up, he has had his hands in his pockets and has done the slug movements, with the half-hearted kicks and stuff. So, not buying that. Glad that Orange Cassidy got to show a little bit of his athleticism. Not a lot, though. I think that's what shocked me is I thought they would go all out for his debut, and they really didn't. It was almost like they were kind of borderline putting Jimmy Havoc over. But anyway, Orange Cassidy ended up, after Penelope got up on the apron and was flirting almost with Orange Cassidy, and then Kip Sabian got involved and took out the best friends with the suicide dive. I was like, I know that they had to get involved because of the storyline, but Orange Cassidy kind of slid Jimmy Havoc into and pinned him. And just, I wasn't ready for the match to be over. I wanted Orange Cassidy to show some more athleticism. I also don't know that I want Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc getting involved with the best friends. And I think that's where they're going. I don't know that I want Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc to be a tag team. I kind of like them as singles wrestlers. I like their characters, and their characters don't go along with each other. Yes, I know Kip is super bad, but when it comes to super bad, he is not at the level that Jimmy Havoc is. He is not using staple guns and stapling cigarettes to people's foreheads. He's not that super bad. So I don't know that I want them to become a tag team. And I've told you guys before in previous episodes, not real sure how I feel about the best friends. So, just kind of leaving that lay, I guess. Because after the match, Jimmy Havoc grabbed Orange Cassidy and put an awesome DDT on him. And then Kip and Jimmy Havoc proceeded to stomp on Orange Cassidy while it felt to me that the best friends were taking their good old time getting in the ring. And to a point, when they ran away, I wanted Orange Cassidy to jump up and start beating on the best friends and saying, how dare you not come to my aid? But whatever, we're all best friends, and okay. Liked when we come back from commercial. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite wrestlers, Spike. MJF had to cut a promo and tell us why he's not wrestling. That he has an injury. He had tweeted this out earlier that he had an injury that he was going to update us on tonight. Well, he did. And they pan out and he's actually in a sling. And I'm thinking, okay, what did this idiot do? Well, he starts telling this big old story about how, he was there that first week and he was gambling with Shawn Spears, and he got a really serious injury. He got a hangnail. And I was marking out. I was popping. I was just like, this fits his character to the T. Of course, we all know What happened was after they released them from Jacksonville, he actually went home. And so he didn't make it back to Georgia, from what I understand, because he got caught up in, the Northeast travel ban. And he's hoping to get back down there as this week or next week. But the hangnail was excellent. And it led, of course, right into Wardlow. We got to see Wardlow in action tonight against Lee Johnson. And I think the thing that shocked me a little bit was they used quotations when they introduced him, and Mr. Mayhem was in the quotes, and I was like, what is that? And Chris Jericho even called him that. Called him Mr. Mayhem. And so I was like, okay, are we changing his name? Are we just giving him a nickname? What are we going for there? And so I saw him, and he had a really good, dominant performance, and I thought it was, hey, it's about time we saw him wrestle. I mean, he's only wrestled twice. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm not really wanting to pay him. He's not doing a whole lot. But I was so glad that he wrestled. And he truly was dominant. And I understand it is because of presence. But the way he was dominant was how I wanted Kenny Omega. Let me tell you, though, I love Cesaro from WWE. I think he is wonderful. I think he is one of the most underrated technical wrestlers around. I wish they would give him a push, or I wish he would leave. But about 3 weeks ago, Cesaro was selling his arm, and he did an airplane spin. He put somebody up on his shoulders, and he was selling that he could not get his arms up to hold them in the airplane spin, so he just spun faster, and they basically flew off his shoulders. Yeah, we actually saw a release airplane spin tonight. Wardlow did it, and not taking anything away from Cesaro, because like I said, I think he's one of the best wrestlers around. He's very much underrated. But the way the airplane spin was done tonight by Wardlow made it seem unreal. Like it was a powerful move of him showing us his agility of spinning around. But when he did the release and Lee Johnson flew across the ring and hit, I was wincing. I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I got to see an airplane spin tonight. Then they kind of immediately segued over into Brody Lee. We saw what appeared to be a young adult who had a football career, had gotten injured, who lost his way, and he was clicking on stuff on the computer, and if you were looking at it and reading it, it was telling, he had been injured and been kicked off the team and had been done this and all of that. It was telling the story, basically. And then it showed him kind of looking around on the internet and then finding the Dark Order. It showed him reading it a little bit and then clicking the Join Now button. And Brody Lee then, after he was meeting with him, and we got to see Brody Lee cut his promo like he was talking to this guy about joining them. And I did not think I would like this. I have not liked the Dark Order. I have thought it is a hokey cult gimmick that is stupid. No, 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 no. Brody Lee actually, I think, sold this for me tonight. I liked how he worked it. I liked what he said. He was professional. He was not from WWE. I really enjoyed his promo. I loved him sliding the mask across the table and basically asking the guy to join him and saying, that they were going to turn his life around. I was like, okay, I'm buying the cult thing now. Well, of course, this led to Brody Lee having a match with Justin Law. I thought Wardlow put on a match. I thought he was extremely dominant. I thought he was impressive. Until they showed Brody Lee right after him. And you know how I said, Wardlow was what I wanted Kenny Omega to look like earlier in the show? Well, Brody Lee was what Wardlow should have looked like. You talk about dominance and power and showing off being fast and agile and being able to put all of that together and do chops and throws. He did a super kick that I've never seen him do as Luke Harper. I've never seen him do as Brody Lee. He did a super kick that just about took Justin Law's head off. Like, the Young Bucks could only wish that they could do a super kick like that. The suplexes he was doing were unreal. He was literally throwing the guy across the ring. These were Brock Lesnar suplexes. And I have never seen him be portrayed that way. And I was impressed with Brody Lee. I really was. He won with the discus lariat that he's been doing. And like Jericho said, it's basically a clothesline. But he basically takes people's heads off. And it really... I bought into Brody Lee tonight. And I never thought I would. I really didn't. And if, like I said, if you've listened to previous and listened to me rant and rave about him, then you know that I was not planning ever to be on the Brody Lee wagon. I'm half on. He really impressed me tonight. He really did. Then we got our Bubbly Bunch segment, which was a little weird, because they were doing the segment to cheer Sammy up, which would have made sense because it happened after he lost to Darby Allin. But no, this was filmed before he lost to Darby Allin. So really what Sammy was upset about, and what he talked about being upset and depressed about, was Hager wasn't the AEW champion, that he lost to Jon Moxley last week. Well, I thought it was really funny because Sammy was way more upset than Jake Hager was. Jake Hager was one of them trying to get Sammy to cheer up. And I was like, are you serious? So Santana and Ortiz decide that they need to do a Flim Flam video, which is basically TikTok, dance to cheer Sammy up. And then Chris Jericho's idea is whoever wins, whoever does the Flim Flam the best, they'll get hand sanitizer. Well, watching them all do the same dance was absolutely hilarious. Especially Jake Hager. But of course, Sammy won by doing what Jericho called showing off. And let me tell you, Sammy Guevara actually has some rhythm, and he was for real dancing. And it was pretty cool to see him adding all his extra moves and everything. It was cool. Then we got the main event. We got Dustin Rhodes, and Brandy came out with him, and then we got Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. This match, I wish it wasn't the main event. I understand why it was. It was because there was a possibility that Dustin Rhodes was going to lose, and this was going to be his retirement. I understand that. It was just really slow. They let Kip Sabian get a lot of offense. He was hitting Dustin left knee, and let me tell you, Dustin was selling it awesome. If you want to know something, kids out there, if you're listening to me, and you want to know how to sell a knee injury to your parents or your teacher or your coach or whoever, you need to watch this match, because Dustin shows you. He makes it look like his knee is about ready to fall off, and it wasn't over exaggerated. At one point, he goes to run across the ring, and his knee gives out. And he did an unbelievable job. But I just felt like Kip's moveset wasn't together. It was almost like he didn't know what he was going to do, and so he wasn't stringing 2 or 3, 4 moves together. It was real herky-jerky, one move, and then it was almost like he was having to think, well, what am I going to do next? And so it was, like I said, a little herky-jerky, and it was real slow. I got bored, and I hate to say that about an AEW main event. Now, I loved how it ended with, Penelope getting ready to be involved, and Brandy had to get up, and Brandy ended up spearing her. And they showed that spearing in slow-mo, and it was awesome. Brandy's been working on her spear, and how Brandy rolled her out, and Dustin did a Canadian Destroyer on Kip. He's calling it the Code Red. But it is a Canadian Destroyer, and Dustin's power and quickness with his Power Slam that he does, that's how fast he does the Canadian Destroyer or his Code Red. And, I mean, he was whipping Kip. And so, yeah, it looked awesome, the ending. And so, of course, that meant Dustin is not retiring. However, does mean Dustin is taking on Lance Archer next week in the semifinals. Man, oh man, I think that's going to be a good match, or it's got the makings of being a good match. They're about the same height, they're about the same weight. Of course, Lance Archer is younger, but I can't wait for this match. Especially, we're probably going to get another Jake the Snake Roberts promo about how at least he's going to get his hands on one of the Rhodes boys, since Cody still hasn't gotten back to him. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. And then we're going to see the other semifinal next week, which I wasn't sure that we were going to get to. I thought they would draw them out and do one next week and one the week after, but no, we're going to see both of them. We're going to see Cody versus Darby and Lance Archer versus Dustin, and I think that's going to be awesome. We're going to see Brody Lee versus Marco Stunt. I look for him to throw Marco Stunt through a wall, and Marco Stunt to be in the hospital. What I'm hoping happens is Luchasaurus comes back and actually steps in, and it starts a program with Luchasaurus and Brody Lee. I'm hoping. I don't think it happens, but I'm hoping. And then we got the preview that Jon Moxley is going to actually speak about his match last week with Jake Hager and still being the AEW champion. And then as they were going off the air, they announced the last match, and it's going to be no disqualification, no count out. It's going to be the Best Friends versus Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc. Called that one. I don't want to see this, because no DQ, no count out means they can go wherever they want and do whatever they want. If they let Jimmy Havoc go crazy with the staple gun and ladders and chairs and cigarettes and barbed wire, then I might get interested. However, TNT has said they don't really want them to do that, and they definitely don't want them to do it a lot. So I don't know whether they'll let them. And if they're not going to let Jimmy Havoc go crazy and torture the Best Friends I can cheer, yeah, I don't want to see it. I hope that's not the main event. I really would like Cody and Darby to be the main event, but I will be okay if Lance Archer and Dustin is the main event if they put on a show. I'm looking forward to next week again. This could be 2 weeks in a row. I don't know what NXT is planning for next week, but they better bring it, because AEW will beat their butts next week. They've said 4 matches, and Jon Moxley's going to speak. They're going to beat NXT if NXT doesn't bring it. So that's all I've got for you guys. I'm so much happier with AEW this week than what I was last week. If you guys aren't happy, let me know. If you guys liked it and do agree with me, holler at me. Tell me you agree with me and you're enjoying this. Please, if you have any questions, comments, problems, or protests, please write me at wrestlingovertime@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook on Wrestling Overtime. I will be more than happy to discuss things with you, tweet back and forth. I think that would be awesome. Of course, I'm going to tell you guys, please rate and review this episode on Podchaser. Podchaser right now is donating money to Meals on Wheels during the COVID pandemic, and so please go there at Podchaser and rate and review all the podcasts that you listen to, not just this one, but all of them, so that they can donate as much money as possible to Meals on Wheels. That's a great organization. Guys, I just really want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to listen to me rant and rave about AEW. And like I said, you need to rant and rave to me back, because I definitely am looking forward to hearing from you guys. Plus, I want to learn from you guys. If you guys already knew Scorpio Sky's backstory, or you know more of it than what he said, write me and tell me. I'm always willing to learn. And for those of you, I've had 2 guys do it so far. If you guys are going to try to turn me into a big Kenny Omega super fan, have at it. No one's did it so far. Like I said, 2 guys have tried, but they did not succeed. So if you're wanting me to be a Kenny Omega super fan, then write me and tell me why. You might be able to do it. I doubt it, but I'll give you hope. Maybe you can. But anyway, I will be talking to you soon.